10 foods you'll wish you hoarded before crisis hits. Look, I'm not trying to scare you, but let's face some hard truth. As of 2023, nearly 282 million people were facing acute food insecurity, and that number has jumped to 345 million across 82 countries. Think about that. While most people argue over politics or scroll TikTok, smart folks are quietly prepping their pantries. Because when a major crisis hits, and at this rate, it's when, not if, you do not want to be the one fighting over the last loaf of bread or bag of flour at Walmart. I've spent months digging into this, reading World Bank reports, poring over food crisis data, talking to preppers who lived through real disasters, and guess what? The World Food Programme says we're in a food crisis of unprecedented proportions, fueled by conflict, climate shocks, and supply chain breakdowns. This isn't tinfoil hat talk. It's happening right now. So in the next few minutes, I'm going to share 10 foods that could literally save your family when grocery stores are empty or prices skyrocket beyond belief. These aren't some bizarre MREs or expensive survival rations either. They're everyday items you can grab at any supermarket today. Stock up gradually, and by the end, you'll see why #10 is something even seasoned preppers overlook. Yet it might be the difference between thriving and barely surviving when things go south. Let's dive in. 1. Flour and yeast, the bread of life. When it comes to crisis staples, flour might not sound exciting, but imagine life without bread, pancakes, or pasta. In every culture, grains are the foundation of diets, and flour lets you transform them into filling foods. If the power's out and supply chains are broken, you can still mix flour with water and yeast if you have it to cook flatbreads on a fire. During the 2020 pandemic lockdowns, flour vanished from shelves as home baking surged. In the US, flour sales spiked to 300% of normal by late March 2020. Americans panic bought so much that supermarkets struggled to keep up. One main grocery chain president said, flour shipments doubled and still couldn't meet demand. Think about that. Even with emergency production, they still ran out. Now fast forward to global crises, it gets even uglier. Just look at Lebanon's bread crisis in 2022. This small country relied heavily on imported wheat, and when the Ukraine war cut off grain supplies, plus their economy collapsed, bread became worth its weight in gold. People formed hours-long bread lines in Beirut. Fights and even gunfire broke out at bakeries as desperate families tried to get a single subsidized loaf. One 57-year-old man waiting in line said something that gave me chills. During the war, we were not humiliated like this. He'd lived through a 15-year civil war, but not being able to buy bread for his kids was worse. Eventually, the government had to take out an emergency World Bank loan just to afford wheat imports. This is the kind of turmoil that hits when flour, the base of so many foods, runs short. Do you really want your family facing that? Stocking up on flour is cheap and easy insurance. A standard 5-pound bag of all-purpose flour costs just a few bucks, and if kept dry and bug-free, can last about 1 year on the shelf or 2 years if you freeze it. That's plenty of time if you rotate your stock. And with some baking powder or yeast, also good to hoard, you can keep your family in bread, tortillas, biscuits, you name it. Sure, baking takes a little effort, but in a crisis, you'll have more time than food, and nothing boosts morale like the smell of fresh bread when everything else is going wrong. If you're really serious, consider storing whole wheat berries. Unmilled grain can last 30+ years, sealed properly, and you can grind it as needed. But at minimum, get some flour and yeast in your pantry. It's the difference between having food versus having ingredients to make food. When others are lined up hoping for government handouts of flour, you'll be at home baking a little normalcy back into your lives. 2. Dried pasta, the ultimate comfort carb. I know, pasta sounds basic, but when crisis strikes, basic is beautiful. There's a reason people emptied the pasta aisle in every disaster movie, and, more tellingly, in real life 2020. Pasta is cheap, filling, and lasts for years. Those dry spaghetti or macaroni noodles can sit in your pantry 5+ years easily, even longer if sealed airtight. And the best part, they cook quickly, using minimal fuel. Just boil water, toss in a handful of noodles, and you've got a hot meal. Let me blow your mind with a true story. During the initial COVID panic, national sales of pasta tripled in 1 week compared to the year before. By April 2020, one report said pasta shipments were up 60%, but still couldn't catch up to the insane demand. Even in peacetime, Americans instinctively grabbed pasta when the future felt uncertain. Now imagine an economic collapse or global food shortage. Pasta will be gone in hours. In Italy, the pasta capital of the world, just this year, prices jumped so high, 17% plus inflation, that the government called an emergency meeting. Think about that. Italians freaking out because even they struggled to afford a box of spaghetti. We are talking civil unrest over noodles. The beauty of pasta is that it's a morale booster as much as a stomach filler. Mac and cheese, spaghetti with a little sauce, even plain buttered noodles, these are comfort foods. When you're stressed and hungry, a warm bowl of pasta feels like a hug from grandma. Plus, it pairs with almost anything. Got canned veggies? Throw them in. A little bit of that precious salt, and maybe tomato sauce? You have a real meal. Shelf-stable comfort is worth its weight in gold during a crisis. Dry pasta is literally pennies per serving, so there's zero excuse not to stash a few extra pounds. One prepper I spoke to said he stores 50+ lbs of various pastas because it's the one food nobody ever gets sick of. I believe it. When everyone else is eating rice gruel or going hungry, you can twirl some spaghetti and remember better days. 3. Salt, pure gold of the ancient world. Yes, salt, humble, cheap, taken completely for granted until it's not there. If you think hunger is your only worry, try living without salt. Your body literally needs it to survive. Without sodium, you get headaches, weakness, even risk slipping into a coma. And good luck cooking anything palatable if you can't season it. Here's the kicker. Salt never goes bad. I mean that literally. Keep it dry, and salt has an infinite shelf life. It was true 1,000 years ago, and it's true today. This makes it an ultimate prep item. You could store a 50-year supply, and it'll be as salty as ever when you need it. To understand why salt is so crucial, take a quick history lesson. Salt was so valuable throughout history that it was once used as currency. The word salary comes from the Latin for salt. Entire wars were fought over salt mines. During the American Civil War, the Union Army deliberately targeted the South salt supply. They blockaded imports and burned salt works because they knew without salt, the Confederates couldn't preserve meat and would starve. It worked. Meat spoiled en masse. Salt prices in the South exploded 50x over, from 50 tonsa to $25 a sack, and lack of salt contributed to their surrender. Think about that. One side essentially won by denying the other side salt. Now consider your own situation. Modern life tricks us into thinking salt's no issue. There's 1 million bottles at Costco for $1, but if the grid goes down or supply lines snap, salt will be one of the first things to disappear. People will hoard it once they realize its value, and it will become a barter superstar. Beyond health, salt is a preservative powerhouse. With refrigeration out, salting meat or fish might be your only way to keep protein from rotting. A tub of salt can turn a harvest of cucumbers into shelf-stable pickles, or a head of cabbage into sauerkraut that lasts months. If you manage to hunt game in a long emergency, packing the meat in salt could prevent waste and provide food for weeks. Simply put, without salt, your food options shrink drastically. The good news? It's dirt cheap right now. A $5 investment in salt could literally save your life, or at least your bacon, later. I store big bags of iodized salt for health and kosher salt for cooking and preserving. Pro tip: iodine in iodized salt does slowly diminish, but the salt itself is fine indefinitely, so maybe rotate that every few years for thyroid health. The bottom line: don't be the person in crisis begging, "Can someone spare a pinch of salt?" Spend a few bucks now and sock it away. Your future self will thank you, and your food will actually taste like food. 4. Sugar, sweetness, that lasts forever. In a survival situation, having something sweet isn't just a luxury. It can keep you sane, not to mention provide quick energy. Sugar is often demonized when times are good, but when times are bad, trust me, you'll wish you had some. Like salt, pure sugar, white granulated, basically never spoils. Keep it dry and sealed, and it will stay good indefinitely. That means you can put away 20 pounds of sugar today, forget about it, and it'll still be perfect 20 years from now, when you need a morale boost or to trade for essentials. And don't underestimate the morale factor. A spoonful of jam or a bit of candy for the kids can bring a smile on the darkest day. Sugar isn't just a treat. It's a key part of food preservation and energy intake. If you've ever made jam or jelly, you know sugar helps preserve fruit by inhibiting bacteria. In what way? Sugar was so critical that the US made it the first food to be rationed nationwide. Starting in 1942, every American, even kids, was allotted only 8 ounces of sugar a week, half of pre-war consumption. Think about that. Your entire weekly sugar rations might equal 1 venti caramel latte's worth. Sugar was rationed before meat, butter, or coffee, and it was the last item the US government stopped rationing, not until 1947. Why? Because it was essential for troops' rations, preserving food and keeping the population from, frankly, losing their minds. There's a reason they called the War home front the greatest generation. Most of us today can't imagine having to earn our sugar. Today, sugar is quietly becoming a concern again. You might not have noticed, but global sugar prices hit their highest level in 11 years recently. Unusually bad weather, blame El Niño, damaged sugar crops in major exporters like India and Thailand, causing a 2% drop in output and sending prices soaring. In many countries, sugar shelves went bare, or prices doubled. Kenya, for example, saw a 110 pounds bag of sugar double in price within weeks during 2023. Even here in the US, I've noticed my baking sugar costing more than it used to. The trend is not our friend. Now imagine a full-blown crisis. Sugar will vanish fast because it's high-calorie and comforting. Storing sugar is about as straightforward as it gets. Buy it cheap in bulk. Transfer to airtight containers or mylar with oxygen absorbers if you're fancy, to prevent clumping and pests, and stash in a cool, dry spot. White sugar, brown sugar, powdered sugar, all have indefinite shelf life if kept dry. Even honey, if you prefer natural sweetener, literally lasts forever. Edible honey was found in Egyptian tombs 3,000 years old. The only reason honey isn't on this list is I promised no repeats from that other script, but consider honey as a bonus item. The point is, humans crave sweetness. In a crisis, a bit of sugar in your oatmeal or a spoon of canned fruit can turn around a lousy day. Plus, you can barter it like crazy. Every culture uses sugar, and when it's scarce, people will trade real goods or labor for it, so stock up on the sweet stuff now. It costs maybe 50 cents per pound at Costco. That's insanely cheap for something that could keep a kid smiling through an apocalypse. 5. Peanut butter. Protein in a jar. Alright, let's talk peanut butter. Some of you might be thinking, really? PB&J during Armageddon? Yes, absolutely. Peanut butter is a bona fide survival superstar, masquerading as a childhood snack. It's packed with protein, healthy fats, and calories, exactly what you need when food is scarce. A single tablespoon has around 100 calories and 4 grams of protein, plus vital nutrients like vitamin E and magnesium. It's dense, it's nutritious, and guess what? It doesn't need refrigeration. In other words, it's tailor-made for crisis food. Unopened jars of peanut butter have a long shelf life, often 6 takes 12 months or more, thanks to low moisture and high oil content. Even after opening, it can last months in the cupboard. Though in a survival scenario, it'll be eaten long before it expires. I used to chuckle at those huge 5-pound tubs of peanut butter, thinking who could ever need that much. Now I have several in my pantry just in case. Let me share a quick story. In 2020, when COVID lockdowns hit, the state of Washington started stockpiling tons of food for emergency assistance. Among the very first items they bought en masse were Jif peanut butter and Barilla pasta, literally pallets to the ceiling. Why? Because food banks knew these items could feed a lot of people cheaply and wouldn't spoil. In fact, peanut butter was so in demand that its price tripled in a few months due to the surge in buying. One official said, "Peanut butter was a very highly wanted and needed commodity." That stuck with me. Commodity. In normal times we call it a sandwich spread. In crisis, it becomes a valued commodity. Beyond raw nutrition, peanut butter has other perks for your survival stash. No cooking needed. You can eat it straight with a spoon. The ultimate zero prep food. It's kid-friendly. Even picky eaters will down a PB sandwich when stress is high. It's also a comfort food. There's something psychologically reassuring about the taste of peanut butter that reminds us of childhood and normal life. That mental boost isn't trivial. I read a piece by a survival mom who said peanut butter can even improve mental health because it contains compounds that promote feel-good brain chemistry. And here's a fact that surprised me. You could survive months on just peanut butter if you had to. It's got protein, fat, some carbs, not a perfectly balanced diet, but enough to keep you going. Few foods can make that claim. If you or someone in your family has a nut allergy, obviously skip this one, or consider stocking sunflower seed butter or other alternatives. But for everyone else, do not overlook the power of the peanut. Grab a few extra jars on your next grocery run. Pro tip, the more processed peanut butters, Skippy Jif, tend to have longer shelf lives than the natural kind because they include stabilizers. I love organic PB, but in my stockpile, I keep the trusty processed stuff for longevity. And if you want to supercharge your stash, look into powdered peanut butter. It's basically peanut butter with the oils removed. Not as calorie-rich, but it lasts 15+ years sealed, and you can mix it with water to make a spread, or throw the powder into smoothies/oatmeal for protein. I have a big can of it in my long-term storage, but even just regular peanut butter will be worth its weight in gold. Ask anyone who's done a multi-day power outage. Cracking open that jar of PB when the fridge is warm and the stores are closed is like opening a gift. In a full-blown crisis, it could be a lifesaver. 6. Cooking oil. Liquid calories and survival lubricant. This is one that many newbies overlook. Fats. Specifically, cooking oil, whether it's vegetable oil, olive oil, coconut oil, whatever you prefer. In our everyday lives, fat gets a bad rap, but in a survival scenario, it is absolutely critical. Your body needs fats for energy and to absorb fat-soluble vitamins A, D, E, K that keep you healthy. Plus, fats make food taste better and help you feel full. The problem? Most fats we use, butter, fresh dairy, etc., spoil quickly without refrigeration. That's why having shelf-stable oils stocked up is so important. Consider this. During normal times, if you run out of cooking oil, you just run to the store. In a crisis, no oil means you can't saute vegetables, you can't fry that stash of rice and beans for flavor, you can't bake effectively, and you lose a huge source of calories. Fats are the densest energy source, 9 calories per gram, If you're stretching limited food, adding a tablespoon of oil, 120 calories, can make the difference between meeting your energy needs or losing weight and strength. Historically, people in harsh conditions crave fat even more than carbs. There's a reason explorers carried lard or pemmican fatty meat paste on long expeditions. Our bodies know we can't survive on protein alone. Rabbit starvation is the term for when people eat only lean meat with no fat and literally starve despite a full belly. Don't let that be you. Now, oils do have a shelf life, typically 1-2 years for olive or vegetable oil, and up to 5+ years for coconut oil if unopened and stored cool. They won't last decades like rice or salt, but you can rotate them, use your older bottles in the kitchen, and replace with new ones in storage. Always have a few big bottles in reserve. Trust me, when crisis hits, oils and fats will vanish fast. Remember the Ukraine conflict in 2022. Ukraine was a top sunflower oil exporter, and when that supply was cut, supermarkets in the UK literally rationed cooking oil purchases. In some European stores, you could only buy 2 bottles max because there was a run on oils. Restaurants and food companies were scrambling. One snack producer said, "It's impossible to get sunflower oil. We're paying triple for alternatives." Even Indonesia, world's largest palm oil producer, banned exports temporarily to protect their domestic supply, which caused chaos in global markets. All that from a regional war. Imagine a global crisis. Fats will be worth their weight in gold. For storage, I recommend diversifying your oils. I keep large jugs of canola vegetable oil, cheap and neutral flavored, some olive oil, healthy and for low heat uses, and coconut oil, long shelf life, solid at room temp, which is useful for certain cooking. Coconut oil in particular is great because it's naturally resistant to oxidation. I've opened a 4-year-old jar and it was fine. Also consider stocking some ghee, clarified butter, if you can find it. It's basically butter with the solids removed, so it lasts much longer than regular butter and doesn't need refrigeration. You can buy canned ghee that stays good for years. It gives that rich buttery flavor, which can be a big morale booster. And one more tip, save some of that peanut butter oil. If it separates, it can actually be used for light cooking or as an emergency lamp oil. Waste nothing. In short, don't neglect fats. I've heard of too many would-be preppers with closets full of grains and beans, but not a drop of oil. That's a recipe for fatigue and malnutrition. In my own planning, I allocate at least 20% of calories from fats, which means for a family stockpile, you want gallons of oil, not just one extra bottle. If it seems like overkill, consider that calories equal survival, and oil is the most calorie-dense common food. Plus, like I said, you'll be king of the barter market if you have spare oil. While others are sadly boiling their rice in water, your family can fry up cakes, saute veggies, and drizzle life-saving calories over your meals. It's not sexy, but it's smart. So next grocery trip, grab an extra bottle of your preferred cooking oil, and maybe a pack of shelf-stable shortening too. Crisco has an indefinite shelf life if unopened. In a pinch, even pure fat like that is better than none. Your future frying pan will thank you. 7. Oats. Breakfast of champions. For decades. If you grew up on warm bowls of oatmeal, you already know the comfort it brings. Oats are a true superfood for crisis times. They are nutrient-dense, providing fiber, protein, and a host of vitamins and minerals. A cup of oats has about 300 calories, 10 g of protein, and hefty doses of iron and magnesium. They help lower cholesterol and keep you full for hours. But what makes oats shine in a survival pantry is their longevity and versatility. Properly stored, rolled, or steel-cut oats can last 10+ years without significant quality loss. That's right, you can buy a 25-pound bag of oats now, seal it up, and be serving hearty breakfasts a decade from now. I want to emphasize how huge that is. Most processed cereals or fancy health foods spoil relatively quickly, Oats, on the other hand, are so robust that they were a staple for ancient armies and are still a top choice for modern preppers. One reason: you can prepare them with just water and heat. No milk, no eggs, no oil needed, though if you have those, even better. In a pinch, you can even soak oats overnight in water and eat them cold if you can't make a fire, a makeshift muesli. And unlike wheat flour that needs yeast or baking, oats are basically ready to eat once softened. Let me share a quick anecdote. I have a friend whose grandparents lived through the Great Depression and Dust Bowl in the 1930s. They had a farm, and things got really tough, but one thing they always talked about was having sacks of oats that saved our lives. Oatmeal for breakfast, oat bread for lunch, even oatmeal supper on the worst days. Decades later, those folks swore by oats as the most important food to keep on hand. We saw a modern version of this during COVID as well. Oats were among the items that doubled or tripled in sales during panic buying. And after the initial wave, people kept buying oats because they realized how useful they are. Oatmeal consumption has been rising and is expected to keep climbing in coming years. Smart people are catching on that oats aren't just for breakfast Quakers, they're survival fuel. Nutritionally, pairing oats with some of the other items on this list is a winning move. Remember the classic rice and beans combo forming a complete protein? Well, oats and peanut butter together do a similar trick. Whole grains plus legumes, peanuts give all essential amino acids. Throw in a spoon of honey or sugar, and you have a high-energy, balanced meal that can be eaten on the go. In fact, one of my personal emergency go bags has packets of instant oats and a small tub of peanut butter. No cooking needed beyond a little hot water or even cold water and time. It's simple, comforting, and keeps me moving. From a health standpoint, having oats in your diet during stressful times is a godsend. The soluble fiber beta-glucan in oats helps stabilize blood sugar and can improve cholesterol. Translation: it keeps your energy levels steady and is good for your heart, important when medical help might be hard to get. It's also gentle on the stomach. When people are not used to a high-carb, beans and rice diet, they can get digestive issues. Oats can actually help with that because of their fiber type, so you won't just be surviving, you'll be thriving gut-wise. Oh, and one more thing, oats aren't just for porridge. You can grind them into flour to stretch your wheat flour. Hello oat bread or pancakes. Use them in cookies or energy balls, morale food, or even use oats to bulk out a meatloaf or veggie burger if you're rationing protein. They're insanely flexible. The bottom line, oats are one of the cheapest, longest-lasting, healthiest carbs you can store. A true champion of crisis nutrition. If you don't have at least a few containers of oatmeal in your pantry, you're missing a low-cost lifesaver. Go grab some. Your future self's hearty breakfast is counting on you. 8. Canned vegetables. Vitamins in a can. Up to now, we've focused a lot on carbs, protein, and fats, the big calorie providers. But what about vitamins and fiber? Enter canned vegetables. When a crisis hits and fresh produce disappears, canned veggies can keep you nourished and prevent nasty deficiencies. Scurvy, vitamin C deficiency, isn't just something from pirate movies. It can happen if you go weeks with no fruits or veggies. Canned goods are your firewall against that. And here's the beautiful thing. Most canned vegetables last 2-5 years on the shelf and can often be eaten beyond the date if the can is intact. They come already cooked or blanched, so you can even eat them straight from the can in a no-cook situation. I remember after Hurricane Katrina, one relief worker told me the real lifesavers weren't the MREs, those ran out quick, but the humble canned goods that charities distributed. Canned green beans, corn, carrots, peas, those gave people nutrients and a sense of normalcy, something green on the plate. In fact, after a major disaster, it's common for organizations to ship in tons of canned fruits and vegetables. Following Hurricane Ian in 2022, One coalition donated over 80,000 pounds of canned fruits and veg to survivors. They didn't send fresh salads, they sent cans. That's what holds up when infrastructure is wrecked. From a prepping standpoint, canned vegetables are unsung heroes. They're heavy because they contain water, which causes some folks to dismiss them in favor of dried foods. But I always advise keeping a decent stash of them for a few reasons. First, variety and flavor. Eating nothing but rice, beans, and flour paste will crush your soul and wreck your health. Toss in a can of mixed vegetables or spinach, and suddenly you've got color, texture, and taste, not to mention key vitamins like A and C from carrots or tomatoes. Second, hydration. The liquid in canned veggies can be used. It's basically vegetable broth. In a water-scarce scenario, that's useful fluid and nutrients you shouldn't waste. Drink it, cook rice in it, whatever, it's bonus nutrition. Third, reliability. Canned goods don't depend on perfect storage conditions as much as dried foods. You can have them in a garage or attic with some temperature swings, and they'll likely still be fine. They're rugged little capsules of nutrition. Let's talk shelf reality. Many canned vegetables are high acid, like tomatoes, or have added salt, which helps them last even longer. Studies have found canned tomatoes, for instance, retain high nutritional value, and lycopene even increases in bioavailability. So don't think of canned as second class to fresh or frozen. When fresh veggies are a distant memory and your freezer's thawed out, canned will shine. I personally stock up on canned tomatoes, diced, crushed, sauce, because they are meal multipliers. You can make soups, stews, pasta, chili, etc. But since tomatoes were covered in that other script, let me shout out some others. Canned spinach, Popeye was onto something. It's packed with iron and vitamin K. Canned carrots, vitamin A for your eyes, and they satisfy a sweet craving in a way. Canned corn, sweet, high in fiber and carbs, kids love it. And canned potatoes, yes, they exist. And you don't have to worry about sprouting or green toxic potato issues. Even canned pumpkin, it's a vitamin powerhouse and can be made into pie or mixed with grains. One pro tip, when you buy canned veggies, get a variety and include some with salt and some low sodium. In a crisis, if you're sweating a lot or working hard, the salted cans help replenish electrolytes. If you have babies or someone on a low sodium diet, those no salt added cans might be needed. But either way, any canned veg is better than none. Also, rotate them into your regular meals so nothing goes to waste. Eat from your stash and replace it. That way, when the day comes that you must eat from your stash, it's all familiar stuff you enjoy. If you need more convincing, remember how I said supermarket shelves were stripped in 2020. Canned veggies were among the first things to go. In late March 2020, sales of canned vegetables would triple the usual rate nationwide. People inherently knew these would be crucial, and that was for a lockdown where water and power still worked. In a true SHTF scenario, canned vegetables will be absolute treasures. So hit up that next sale. Canned goods are often 2 for $1 in the bargain aisle, and load up on a rainbow of veggies. Your immune system and taste buds will thank you when fresh food is just a memory. 9. Dried fruit, nature's candy, and nutrition. Remember that sweet morale boost we talked about with sugar and honey? Dried fruit gives you that, and brings along a pack of nutrients. Think raisins, dried apricots, prunes, cranberries, banana chips. Take your pick. These are essentially fruit on pause. By removing water, the fruit's shelf life extends from a week to 6, 12 months or more, sometimes much longer if well sealed. They're lightweight, easy to carry, and require no preparation to eat. In a crisis, having something you can just open and munch is gold. And unlike pure candy, dried fruits provide vitamins like A and C, plus minerals like potassium and iron. One of my prepper buddies jokes that raisins are multivitamins that grow on vines. It's not far off, A handful of raisins has iron and B vitamins, and dried apricots are loaded with vitamin A and potassium. These help keep your body functioning when stress is high and diet is limited. Another great benefit: fiber. Dried fruits are fiber-rich, which helps keep your digestive system running smoothly, important when your diet might suddenly change and you're on a lot of carbs and canned foods. Trust me, the last thing you need in a survival situation is constipation or digestive upset. A few prunes can literally save the day. Your elders know what I'm talking about. There's a psychological win here too. Dried fruits are nature's candy. They can satisfy a sweet tooth without dipping into your sugar stores. If you've got kids, being able to hand them some chewy sweet mango or apple rings when treats are scarce will make you a hero. I've seen it firsthand. In one power outage, our neighbor's kids were getting cranky with all the usual snacks gone. I offered some yogurt-covered raisins from my stash. You'd think I gave them Halloween candy. Immediately, the mood improved. It was a tiny bit of normalcy and delight in a tough time. From a storage perspective, the main enemy of dried fruit is moisture, which can bring mold, and to a lesser extent, oxygen. If you keep them in airtight containers or mylar with oxygen absorbers for long term, you can easily get a year or more of good quality. I rotate mine every 12 months, just to be safe, eating the older packets and buying new ones. Pro tip: store some in the freezer if you have space. It can prolong quality even further, and if the power goes out, you just transfer them to Pantry. Another tip: consider dehydrating your own fruit if you have access to fresh produce in season. Homemade dried apple chips or dried berries can be vacuum sealed, and they're amazing to have tucked away. One thing to watch: some dried fruits are coated in sugar or syrups. Looking at you, craisins and candied pineapple. Those have extra calories, which is fine, but they might not last as long because sugar can absorb moisture. They'll still last a good while, just keep an eye on them. Plain dried fruits, or lightly sulfured, which preserves color, generally store the best. In terms of use, beyond snacking, you can rehydrate dried fruits in water to make a sort of compote or stir them into oatmeal. Remember those oats you stored? That means flavor and vitamins infusing into your breakfast. You can chop dried figs or dates into that bland rice pudding, and suddenly it's a treat. These little things boost morale and provide crucial micronutrients when fresh produce is unavailable. The American Institute for Cancer Research even recommends eating fruit with every meal if possible, and in a crisis, dried fruit might be how you achieve that. So stock a variety: raisins for quick energy, apricots for vitamin A and iron, prunes for, digestion, and maybe some tropical fruits just to remember what a pineapple tasted like. When you're grinding through tough times, a burst of natural sweetness and the memory of sunny orchards can keep you going. 10. Coffee and tea, fuel for morale and mind. I saved this for last because it's the one most people overlook until it's too late, and it's about more than just food, it's about your sanity. If you're a caffeine junkie, and most of us are, let's be honest, going through a crisis without coffee will add a world of hurt on top of everything else. Headaches, irritability, low energy, caffeine withdrawal is brutal, even in normal times. Now imagine dealing with that while you're also cold, hungry, and scared. Not fun. Even if you're not a regular coffee drinker, having some on hand can be a lifesaver for trade or for giving a boost to an exhausted family member who needs to stay alert. And let's not forget tea. Similar deal. Many folks are basically addicted to their daily tea. The point is, caffeine is the closest thing to legal tender in a crisis when it comes to food items. History proves this over and over. During World War II, the U.S. Fort Croft Luftwaffe actually rationed coffee for a time, limiting households to 1 pound every 5 weeks, roughly 1 cup per day per adult, and that was when Latin America's coffee crops were at record highs. The issue was shipping and priorities for troops. People went nuts hoarding coffee, when the ration was announced. It was like a Black Friday scramble, even the Civil War one mentioned earlier. After SALT, one of the Union's blockades was on coffee to the Confederacy, because depriving soldiers of caffeine was a tactical disadvantage. Confederate soldiers roasted chicory or acorns as coffee substitutes, with much misery. Closer to today, think about any time a storm or earthquake hits. One of the comfort items relief workers often bring is a big vat of hot coffee. It's not just about caffeine, it's the ritual, the warmth, the psychological normalcy of it. Now, in terms of storage, the good news is instant coffee lasts practically forever. I'm talking 20+ years, even indefinite, if stored airtight. Those freeze-dried crystals are your best bet for long-term. Vacuum-sealed bricks of ground coffee can last a year or two and still be decent. Whole coffee beans sealed in mylar with oxygen absorbers can also hold flavor for a long time, and if you can grind on demand, that's even better. Tea, especially black tea, can last years in bags or as loose leaf, if kept dry and away from light. I've drunk 5-year expired tea, and it's fine. Maybe a bit weaker, but okay. Caffeine doesn't really degrade much. It's the flavors that do. So worst case, old coffee might taste stale, but it will still light you up. Frankly, in an emergency, you won't care if it's gourmet roast or generic instant, as long as it puts pep in your step. Let's talk scenario. Grid down, second week. You've been eating canned and dried food, running on adrenaline. Morale is flagging. Then one morning you fire up a tiny stove and boil water, and bam, you make a cup of coffee. The smell hits your nose and it's like a switch flips. We're gonna get through this. It's suddenly a tiny slice of normal in an upside-down world. I can't overstate how powerful that is. I've heard from people in war zones and refugee camps. A shared cup of coffee or tea was the one thing that made them feel human for a moment in hell. Don't discount that power. Also, caffeine has practical benefits. It boosts alertness and reaction time. If security is an issue, and you're pulling night watches or long drives evacuating, caffeine can keep you sharp when you're sleep deprived. In a collapse scenario, that could literally be life-saving. Falling asleep at the wheel or nodding off on guard duty is not an option. Tea can also soothe nerves, herbal teas especially, though those usually don't have caffeine. But hey, chamomile for calming is nice to have too. One more angle, barter. If you're well stocked on coffee and your neighbor isn't, you basically own them. I'm kidding, but only slightly. Coffee will be one of the most coveted trade items. People will give up a lot for a taste of it once their supply is gone. Same for cigarettes and alcohol, but coffee is easier to store and legal to stockpile. I have several vacuum packs of cheap ground coffee, specifically for barter. If I don't need them, great. Coffee for everyone at my place. If I do, I know I can trade a pack for maybe some fresh eggs from someone with chickens, or for fuel, or whatever. It's a strategy. So my advice is stock up on your stimulants of choice. If you love coffee, get extra now while it's plentiful. A large container of instant coffee is only like $5.10 and could be 100+ servings. If you prefer brewed, get some ground coffee and maybe a small French press or stovetop percolator so you can make it off-grid. For tea drinkers, buy big boxes of your favorites, black, green, herbal variety. They're cheap and you can make a lot of cups from a box. Store them airtight and dry. And if you don't consume caffeine at all, consider having a little anyway for emergency use or charity. You might literally save someone from a crippling withdrawal headache, or be a hero by handing a distressed neighbor a hot cup of joe when there's no Starbucks in sight. It's the little things that keep us sane, folks. Coffee might seem like a luxury now, but in a crisis, it's pure psychological fuel. Don't sleep on this one. Your morning routine might be the anchor that keeps you and your family grounded when chaos reigns.